I swear, Mike, every time I'm like, quiet, we're about to go. You have to speak right in the middle of the intro. It makes our show look like it's low budget. Did you raise Mike's mic? You probably didn't do that, did you?
No, he needs to go up.
Maybe.
I can do that because Mike's asking for an iPad so he can read the comments, because that's the only redeeming thing Mike seems to offer this show.
That's true, and Mike's super drunk right now. It's all he's capable of doing at the moment.
Give me that iPad before I rip my mic up to get it myself.
All right, let us know in the comments. I can actually, while you're up, Patrick, I can see Mike's levels are lower than mine, so just raise them up just a little bit.
Can you get me a LaCroix so I can sober up a little bit too?
Yeah, and while you're at it, I'll take a massage too.
What a sandwich.
Yeah.
Too loud now?
Talk, Mike.
Testing.
A little louder.
Talking. Here we go.
All right.
F-Stoppers COVID Journal.
That might be a little loud, Patrick, but that's close.
You want a what? A LaCroix?
Alrighty, people in the comments section. I guess today we're going to be more interacting with the comments because we did no prep. We didn't know we were going to do this show until 10 minutes ago. We were down here filming another video.
Who is this jackass next to you, Lee? Tell the crowd who I am. He picked me up off the street. I had an eye patch and a tin cup, and he brought me up here.
This is the photographer who didn't know who Ansel Adams was.
Drink one of these, Mike.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice try. What is this?
Here you go.
It's
Passion
seltzer
fruit
water.
Yes,
Thanks.
seltzer water with 11.2% alcohol content.
Open that up, Mike. Come on. Anyway, we did no prep. We have no clips prepared. And this show is going to be the worst one so far. We just thought we'd have fun and giggle with Mike. He gets giggly when he's had 1.5 drinks.
I talked to a buddy today, guy who came down and visited you in Puerto Rico one time I was gone, and he was telling me he was in Estonia for like the last 2 months.
Okay.
And he was like, it was amazing. Like,
He has already recovered from the Rona.
he did have coronavirus, and I asked him, does that give him a passport to go anywhere he wants now? It seems like it's like the golden ticket.
It should be.
And he said what every one of us knows is nobody in the airports, nobody with the governments has any reasonable intuition on like what to do. Like having coronavirus and being able to prove that, hey, I've had coronavirus already, doesn't allow you to enter or leave the country or not quarantine. They need the same paperwork that whatever the government's come up with. So if the government has come up with some crazy, like, you need to prove that you've had 2 negative tests, that's what you have to prove. You can't say, like, I've had the vaccine yet, I don't think, you know? If you came to Puerto Rico and you've already had the vaccine, I could see them still stopping you in the airport and being like, no, we need the negative test.
Right, right.
Which is exactly what he was saying. So he was like, nobody gave a crap about whether or not if I had the coronavirus already and have antibodies. All they want is, what does the paperwork say I need? Do you have it? You're good to go. So he's like, I came up with the negative test, and then he was like, I partied in Estonia for like 2 months, and no one out there was wearing masks, and it was like 20% of the people were wearing masks. The capacity was like 80% of the bars and everything. He said it was a blast. He's like, it was amazing. He's looking to go back.
Well, you know, I think this just goes to show how poorly Trump has kind of been a leader during all of this, but you can't just blame it on him, and you can kind of point to the entire world and be like, why? It seems to me, with all of the data that we currently have, that if you have coronavirus, I actually just saw a study the other day that said something like 98% of people tested, I think this might have been a Japanese test, look this up for me. It was something like 98% of people were still immune to the virus 6 months after recovering from it.
That's what he was saying. He's like, no one knows if you're immune. Like, his doctor is saying he should be immune for 2 years, while other people are saying 3 to 6 months.
Right.
We still have no, I mean, maybe we do. Maybe that there is consensus out there, but I don't feel like it's become the standard. Like, nobody knows for certain what the truth is. And that's kind of troubling a year into this thing, right?
Yeah, but I wonder, like, could the vaccine somehow do better than getting it and your body because isn't the vaccine basically doing exactly what your body would do anyway to recover? It's injecting RNA into your body, and it's forcing you to create antibodies even without the virus being in your system.
Right.
The antibodies should be the exact same from the virus or the vaccine, correct? So wouldn't you have if you can get it?
The difference is with the virus, you actually could be the percentage of people that get sick and have all of the symptoms and outcomes and everything, right?
Yeah.
Because you got the virus. And maybe if you got the virus, you might be immune now, but you might have all the chronic problems that we still don't know as well, right? But if
Yeah.
you get the vaccine, you've never actually had the virus. You were just able to produce the antibodies with the mRNA strain, and the strain is just coding for the protein without all of the destruction that the virus causes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You follow me?
Yes, I think so.
So the outcome's kind of the same, but the person who had the virus might have all of the problems that come with the virus as well.
But
That come with the disease.
do you guys remember? I'm sure Mike doesn't, but do you remember? This was a couple of weeks ago, I think. Maybe it was a couple of months ago. Was it Rand Paul goes on Fox News or CNN or something, and he basically says, "Ew, Patrick, we're
What?
gonna get banned from YouTube."
I read the indecent, the basic instinct. Go ahead.
The overwhelming majority of comments has been about your legs and shorts.
They said they missed it.
I
They
can
missed
see his
this.
underwear on this side, so
Am I
consider
wearing
yourselves
these?
lucky.
I shouldn't be wearing underwear in these.
I think it was Rand Paul comes out. I think he was on some news show, and he's like, "We should be celebrating people that have recovered from the virus, and we should be telling them to go out and live your life. You
Yeah.
are now immune."
You're now the one that's going to spur the economy and
Right.
help us.
And then CNN comes out with doctors, and they're like, "I can't believe he would say this. This is so horrible, and this is, he's going to kill people with this rhetoric." And I'm like, what rhetoric?
Doug Itman is the only person I've ever seen that is talking about ivermectin, which my dad has
Your
been
dad is hopped up on this ivermectin
He's
theory.
been talking about this for like 6 months, and I'm
Yeah.
like, Dad, you're crazy. The other day, he was like, tune into Fox News tomorrow. Sure enough, they're talking about ivermectin. And I'm
Okay.
like, I've never even heard this word except through my dad for 6
Isn't
months.
that a bacterial, infectious, resistant medication?
I don't
like you
know.
take it against parasites, I think.
I don't know. My dad is all about MIT and all, NIT. And he's like, you got to read the National Institute of, what does T stand for? NIH. It's health, NIH. He's reading all these research papers, and he's been talking about ivermectin and how Australia is using all this stuff, and there's somebody in our chat talking about it.
So what have they found? What should we know?
I mean, it's just like hydroxychloroquine, where my dad is saying there are a lot of studies that are saying it's really a solution. But then there's this polarized study that's saying it's not, and it's so polarized. Ivermectin has never been talked about by the president, so you kind of don't have that polarizing debate with that one drug. But they're saying the results, people taking ivermectin are everyone's coming through, They're having no complications. I haven't started reading the literature because my dad talks about it so much. I'm like, I can't feed the machine.
King Ranch is saying that we should have your dad on the show again.
Oh boy, I don't know about that. Here's something I want to talk about. Because you were just saying this before I interrupted you.
Hold on. James is saying even Trump didn't take hydroxy. Yes, he did. He was taking it even when he didn't have the virus. Maybe he did. Maybe you're saying after he got it, he didn't take it, but they had better stuff by then.
This is kind of what I wanted to talk about this a show or two ago, but you just brought it up. And that is the idea that hasn't Fauci come out and said publicly that just because you get the vaccine, that doesn't mean that you should now go out in the public and you should still shelter in place and treat it as if you could be
What?
Yes, he said this like a month ago before the vaccine was being administered.
What?
But there's this
Well,
notion.
yeah, just because I get some vaccine for a crazy infectious disease doesn't mean I go party with people who
Yes, it does. It means you should go
Yeah, it
back
does.
to
No,
life.
If you get the measles vaccine, are you going to go intentionally expose yourself to people who
In a
have-
measles pandemic,
In-
you're like,
intentionally expose myself.
Well, that's what you're doing
live,
by-
or
that's what
live
you're
my
doing.
life.
live your life a little bit? and ease back into it.
But I've got the vaccine.
So do you? Yeah,
What-
but how long will it take to be effective? Is it an hour-long thing? Is it? Oh, it's injected. Okay, you're good to go. Go.
Okay,
Go on
then-
Tinder and have fun.
Then
you know?
Fauci should just be more specific. Like it
I agree.
takes 1 week to
you
kick
know
in.
that I am like the most liberal person that you know, and that I'm a Fauci believer. But it does bother me when they're not more specific, and like the New York Times comes out with these blanket articles, like just that are pure fear mongering rather than actual. Here is a scientific fact. Both sides are guilty of it, obviously. But it does bother me when stuff like that comes out and they're not specific. They are intentionally vague to kind of scare people, it seems like.
I just wish when they'd go on TV, they would clarify and say, the reason we don't want you to go out after getting the vaccine is because you need 2 doses. And even after getting the second dose, it still may take a week or...
Yeah.
It seems like it should take, I mean, I'm no scientist here, but it seems like it should take the amount of time that it takes you to get sick and get over it.
Yeah.
You would think the mRNA would be able to build that immunity naturally in a similar time frame. So if you've had both doses over the course of a month, you would think you'd be okay. Basically, the idea is, though, once the vaccine becomes effective, the end goal is for everyone who's vaccinated to go back out into the workforce and live a normal life and then protect all of the other people who haven't had the vaccine yet.
Yeah.
That's the point of the vaccine. But I'm hearing things that are saying, I remember when I gave blood to see if I had the antibodies already. It said, if you are found to have already had the antibodies, this does not mean that you should go back out into the world. And I was thinking, this was in the summer, and I was like,
It's crazy.
why wouldn't it be? If I have the antibodies against coronavirus, you're telling me that's not good enough? I need to still stay in my home and
I also
shelter in
just feel
place?
like everything has happened so quickly that no one knows for sure.
Well, that's what's so frustrating. How in the world were we able to come up with a vaccine that works before we can even know things like if you've gotten it and recovered from it, you're not immune for some amount of time?
It's similar to other viruses, but it's not identical.
Sure.
And I think that they're exercising as much caution as possible.
You
I
would
don't
just-
know. I can see where you have designed a protein that will bind to the protein on the virus, which will prevent you from getting sick.
And isn't the vaccine
mechanism-
only like 90% effective?
95.
That's a really high
I
percentage,
think
though.
different vaccines have different
Yeah.
effectiveness.
All I'm saying is if we have a way to bind to the virus and prevent it from ever being problematic for you, the solution there is very different than also saying, but can it be passed on to... Like, there's so many other questions that are unrelated to the vaccine solution to where I can see that there's a divide there. We don't know how many times you can get it. We don't know if it's mutating. We don't know the side effects. We don't know the comorbidities and the risk factors. Like, there's 1,000 things we still aren't totally sure about. But we are sure that this mRNA protein that's coded from the mRNA vaccine will bind to the protein of the virus and prevent you from getting sick. Those are like 2 different concepts that I think we can have a lot of questions on the outcome of coronavirus, but feel pretty confident in the vaccine itself.
Well, maybe that's true, and obviously I'm no scientist, but I've noticed some other strange psychological things that people are doing. I have an aunt who was totally freaked out over this virus, and she basically gave up like the last 9 months of her life, and has just been at home alone by herself. And she told me that she thought she had the virus back in March, February or March. And I said, oh, great, go get tested. And then if you have antibodies, then you can live your life. And she was like, nope, it's still not safe. Nobody knows how long the immunity will last. And I'm like, okay, so you'll just do this forever? Like, you'll just do this until there's a vaccine or something? But this, brings up the same question.
Yeah.
Does the vaccine have the same amount of immunity as if your body naturally got it and recovered? But then, just now, as coronavirus cases are worse than they ever have been, and we can go to the numbers in a second, she has started to go out now.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, she did the absolute worst thing that she could do. She gave up the majority of this year. She stayed inside. She waited until things got much worse.
Her stress levels, her anxiety, her
Yeah.
her fear,
And
everything
now
else
she's
built up.
just acting like it's fine now when there is a vaccine hopefully on the horizon.
Well, what you just said reminded me of an idea that I had back in the summer when I got my first antibody test, and I was asking the guy who was giving me the test, the instant test. I said, wouldn't the smartest thing to be if you have the antibody, you test positive, and you're like, I'm already over it. If you knew that, wouldn't the smartest thing to do is to go out once a month and party with everyone as hard as you can so that you get reintroduced to the virus again, you have the antibodies, and it constantly keeps your immune system in this elevated stage. The worst thing you would do is shelter in place, and then your body naturally rids of it, and then all of a sudden you're back to where you were. And he was like, yeah, I think that's exactly what we should be doing. And
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he agreed. I mean, he was also administering this test with no mask on at all. And I was like,
Andrew
"Oh,
J. says there is a 17-year proven immunity, peer-reviewed at Nature.
How can they do a 17-year?
How could you slap?
How could you slap when it's only been 9 months since we've had it? I don't get that, but yeah, I'll have to look into
I mean,
that.
we have had research papers coming out at the beginning of this. This is back with all the conspiracy theory stuff. That this virus has been around a lot longer, like in the research labs. That
Oh,
there are.
God.
It's true. This person
mean-
named Q online.
No,
told me
there
so.
are scientific papers that are studying coronavirus SARS-2.
Mike's drunk.
It's just never jumped to humans. From my
What do we
understanding.
think? Ray Romano fanboy wants to know
Yeah,
what
we-
we think about the failed stimulus relief talk.
Yeah, this is a super chat. But hold on, you just.
I'm not going to entertain
You
conspiracy
just
theories.
silenced Patrick. Go, Patrick.
I will not buy into the lab-grown
all I
COVID conspiracy. Is that where this is going?
One narrative that apparently Mike buys into is that we've never seen this coronavirus ever, and it just appeared in the middle of a Chinese market, where there is
narrative.
other research that does suggest that scientists and labs, maybe across the world, in a very remote, controlled environment, have been studying this virus or one that's very, very, very similar.
I think they could similar, yes, but not COVID-19.
Well, COVID-19 is the symptoms from the SARS-2 virus.
I don't want to speculate on something I don't know about. However, that seems like one of those conspiracy theories that keeps coming up, like in that Plandemic movie, and that gets parroted by collective Your Crazy Family on Facebook. You know, when you have like a third uncle, and he goes
I
on
don't
there
want
and
to
he's like,
spread misinformation either. So if anyone out there thinks that what I'm saying could have truth in it, just put a link. Can they do that, or do they have to do a super chat?
I don't know.
Just put a link to the papers. I know we covered all of this in the beginning of this coronavirus journal.
So Ray Romano's super chat. How do we feel about the failed stimulus relief talk? I'm not sure what was on the table with this new
I think it was a
stimulus.
$900 billion.
Well, what does the average person get a check again?
I don't know. I can look it up. I'm sure. Let me pull up.
You got paid for the last one, right? Did you get a
No,
check
I
in
did
the mail?
not.
What do you mean?
No.
Why not?
He was over the
No,
limit.
I made more than the threshold.
Oh, that's right.
What I'm curious about is I made less than I'm right on the edge. Last year I made right around the threshold money, but I hadn't done my taxes yet. So I wonder if by doing my taxes were just submitted a few months ago. Is there a way to get
Wait, you didn't make enough money in the United States?
I think that's how it works. I think they look at your IRS tax return. And it was right around the threshold. And if it was below the
Oh.
threshold, but I didn't have, well, my sister ran into this too. She had her taxes done for 2019 maybe. And then she had a baby January 1st of 2020.
Yeah.
But because you got extra money for having a dependent, but she hadn't done a tax return that included the dependent, she fell in this like weird area where like she didn't get the dependent money. But I mean, I'm not going to take the stimulus money. I don't need it, but it's one of those.
Wouldn't take it. If the check was in the mail for $1,500, you wouldn't.
If it
cash
was,
that
I
check?
would take it, but I'm not going to go back and like contest it and be like, "Where's my stimulus money that I qualified for?"
Yeah, I'm trying to think why I was always so confident that I would not get it. What was the difference between our tax returns that you thought you might get it, but I was so sure that I wouldn't?
I don't know.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't know much about.
I mean, you have a lot of money in Airbnb back at home, so maybe you're way over the threshold. You're probably making more money in the U.S. than I am in last year.
Oh, maybe that's
2019.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's
I didn't have that income, Lee.
Okay. Andrew J says, yeah, but you're making rent money on your house too. Anyway, people with
You're making my rent money like every week. I'm making it once a month.
I don't know about that. People with SARS-1 2003 could not be infected with SARS-2.
This was another one that people were talking about. Like, didn't you have an aunt who had SARS-1 and you had no idea she ever had that?
Yeah, she died from it.
And then you were reading studies that said, man, she died from it.
Yeah.
But you were thinking there's a chance that, wasn't there a chance you thought you might have had SARS-1 at one point?
Is SARS-1 H1N1?
It's swine flu, I think. Are these different? I don't know.
Let's see. Now I gotta.
But this is a question. I don't know if we totally know the answer to this yet. Do we know definitively that people that had SARS-1 back in 2005, 2005 or 2010, was it around there? Do we know definitively that they are immune to SARS-2?
I've heard speculation of that.
Shouldn't we know the answer to that?
I know. I don't get it.
2003 was the SARS outbreak. That was pretty close, 2 years off.
And H1N1 was 2009.
H1N1 caused the influenza pandemic of 1918.
Oh, is that right?
And the swine flu pandemic as of 2009. Interesting.
You know what I'd like to see? I don't know if we can find this, but remember at the beginning of all of this, maybe a month or two in it, there was an infograph that had like the size of the people that have died compared to the virus itself. And it was like the Black Plague was a big one. And it had like all of these huge pandemics throughout the world history.
Yes.
And coronavirus was like this little tiny dot.
Pixel.
I would like to know, I don't know if somebody's
now.
updated that. I would be curious to see like how much larger has it gotten, or is it still magnitude smaller? Because I believe it was deaths that it was measuring.
Ian sent us a super chat. Apparently there was a report of COVID in blood donations from last December.
Where? In the U.S.?
Let's look it up. COVID in blood donations in December.
Wow.
H1N1 is swine flu.
The-scientist.com.
Can that be trusted?
Hold on, redcross.org. Study suggests possible COVID-19 timeline.
December 1st, okay. So
It seems like every month it gets further and further back.
Well, I remember, a long time ago, people were like, oh, yeah, we've already proven it was in the United States in November, and then it was in the
Didn't they say it was in France in, like, October or
something like that. Yeah, again, it's so frustrating. How do you know what's true?
William Edwards says, when is F-Stoppers going to challenge Peter McKinnon in a duel? I'd love for Peter McKinnon to come down to Puerto Rico. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
We don't know him personally. We've had some like chats between DMs and stuff, but
That's true. I thought he hated us.
I think you think everyone hates us.
That's true.
That's
I
true.
hate you.
But we bring the people that hate us.
Yeah, and
down
we
to
win
Puerto
them
Rico.
over. We break their icy hearts, warm their icy hearts. Let's look at the numbers real quick, because if you guys remember the last coronavirus journal,
We were on the way to breaking the record, right? Or had we just...
We had not broken it yet. We were close. And I said within the next 3 to 5 days, we will surpass the worst we've ever been. Now,
We were down in that trough, right? The last time we did it?
maybe so. Maybe we're down. Well, yeah, I think this is around
like Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. So this is cases. So obviously we're going up like crazy here, but you can't really look at that. But look at deaths. Boom. 2,900 deaths. And the highest day previously was 2,700.
I read that COVID deaths outpaced heart disease deaths for the first time over the weekend.
It's pretty wild.
We were on the pickleball courts. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Pickleball. Look
Yeah.
it up. I never knew about this sport. Apparently
Old people play it.
super
In
popular.
retirement communities like this one.
It's super popular in the Caribbean. And there was a debate going on. Maybe it was with you and somebody, or I don't know, but it was something about the number of deaths for 2019 or 2020 are less than they were for 2019. And you were saying, yes, but we're not done with the year, and there's all these averages, and maybe it's a trailing statistic and hasn't caught up with. Have you looked any more into that, or is it just the way the numbers are being played? You know, could we have less car deaths this year because people are at home and actually less people are dying?
So you guys can look up these charts. They're called, I believe, excess death chart. CDC puts these numbers out, and basically what they do, we talked about this in previous videos, but what they do is they estimate how many deaths per day we could expect based on the amount of deaths we had last year, based on the population increase, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people, including myself, are skeptical of the COVID daily death numbers because anyone who happens to have COVID, like George Floyd, is being counted as a COVID death when we know
you're gonna go with him as
he
an
did
example,
not die of COVID. So I'm a little skeptical just looking at
Do you
these.
think they didn't mark him as dying of COVID, right?
I'm pretty sure they did.
Really? They picked him and said, like, cause of death, COVID-19?
I don't know. I don't know.
He has to be an exception, right? They're not going to count him as COVID-19.
I don't know. I thought the government wanted, if you had COVID and you died, to be
count.
placed as a COVID.
Okay.
Like, maybe that's not on the death certificate, but they died with it. I don't know. But anyway, you can look at the excess death numbers, and there's no way to spoof that. So you can just look and see, like, are we having more deaths this year than we should? And the answer is yes. Now, a couple of months ago, maybe it was 3 months ago, we actually dropped below where we would expect the deaths to be. So people jumped on that. Like the people who really didn't want the coronavirus to be real and the people who really like hate the lockdown jumped on that and they were like, aha, you see, there's actually fewer people dying than should be dying. Mm-hmm. Why are we in lockdown? Which was true, but it was only true for a few days.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we're like way, way up again. So
more people have died worldwide in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely.
When accounted for, we're still have a month to go, and maybe we don't have the data for November.
I'm not looking at that. I'm just looking at, like, by the day, we are way ahead. We're like, the United States, I think, is something like 300,000 excess deaths over what you would expect. And if we look at the number of COVID deaths, I think around 300,000, 300,000 to 400,000.
Okay, that's a significant
And
amount.
there's 293,000 COVID deaths currently on the books for the United States. So you could look at that and go, okay, that's pretty accurate.
T. Lambert says, Lee, let's talk about Tesla positions. But before we do that, we have some super chats. So I'm sure that's a touchy subject.
It's not a touchy subject. I've lost all my money, and
you're over it.
I'm fine with it.
Danny says, you all inspired me to start a podcast called Building Bridges, where I invite people from different backgrounds to talk openly. Thanks for everything. Well, I'm glad we were able to do that.
Hear, hear, Danny.
We only invited people on our show like 10 times the whole...
Well, every time we did, people were like, why'd you invite them on? They don't know what they're talking about. They're ruining the show.
Mike's such a simp.
But, yeah.
Photog Mike says, COVID update, after losing all my hair, it all grew back, but according to my doc, it's still got some kind of infection in my blood, going back for more tests.
Damn. I'm sorry, Photog Mike is still struggling with this. But as a bald man, I'm glad your hair came back.
Hypers says, new details on the Pfizer, COVID-19 vaccine side effects. And he says, 4 people got Bell's palsy from the vaccine. And I said, can you send a source? And I'm waiting on that.
All right.
So that will be interesting.
How do you think they distinguish whether or not somebody just naturally got Bell's palsy because of the vaccine? Or like my best friend from high school, he had Bell's palsy for like a couple months. It's freaking weird, you know.
Yeah,
He's like in his
so
20s,
weird.
and his whole face was droopy, and I'm like, it just happens to people.
Yeah.
So
keep going.
I don't know. Like I forget the scientific pathway of figuring out if one's related and correlated to another.
Is it related to herpes?
Bell's palsy?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I gotta Google that.
I mean, there's a lot of herpes. There's like, is it herpes A, B, and C? Most of us have a strain of herpes in us. The one I was reading about was not herpes, but what's the other?
Although the exact reason for Bell's palsy occurs isn't clear, it's often related to having a viral infection. Viruses can be linked to Bell's palsy, including viruses that cause cold sores and genital herpes. Interesting.
Herpes simplex. I mean, that's like most people have that.
Tom Towles says 4 getting Bell's palsy out of 20,000 is the same number the general population would get.
Oh, that's interesting.
So maybe that's a non.
In case anybody wants to know what Bell's palsy is. That just looks like a bad drawing, but that's literally what people look like. Half their head goes
Droopy and numb, and you're not able to control it. I watched a really good video today. I don't know how I can reference it, but it was just on how the mRNA vaccine works. And one of the questions you had in the last show is, why does it have to be frozen so cold and like all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And it's just because I didn't know this, but mRNA is so delicate because it's meant to be it goes in between the nucleus and you're able to like build proteins off of it, but it's supposed to disintegrate really quickly because if you had a response in the cells, you wouldn't want the mRNA sticking around too long because then it would transcribe like all of these proteins and it would be super potentially dangerous for your body. So mRNA breaks down really quickly. And I think the way they're doing this vaccine is they are embedding the mRNA strand that they have designed in the lab, and they have enclosed it in a biolipid layer like a fat so that it can be absorbed into the cell and it can be protected a little bit better. I think viruses might have something like this naturally. They're like in...
Do you know what he's talking about?
No.
This isn't that deep, man.
This is pretty
No, it's just
hardcore.
like a little fat cell that's like around the virus,
Okay.
around the mRNA, and then that allows it to be frozen. It keeps it as stable as possible, and then when it's thawed, it has to be used in a day or two, and then if it's not, it's broken down, disintegrated. Now, I imagine the shot that you're given is going to have a ton, I don't know how many, hundreds, thousands, millions of little mRNA molecules, because your body's going to need a certain amount to go into your muscle to be absorbed, and then your whole immune response will take that in and have it. But if it gets too warm, say it's kind of like ice cream. Ice cream is probably a great example. If you have ice cream, I didn't know this until we moved in this house. If you have ice cream and you put it in your freezer, and your freezer is only 20 degrees, your ice cream's still going to be soft even though it's freezing. And you would think water freezes, it's going to be hard like an ice cube. But to have really tough ice cream, you need to be like 10 degrees. And so if your ice cream's always kind of soft in your freezer,
I know this because your freezer is weak.
Yeah, it sucks.
yeah, so we have to put the ice cream in the ice maker.
Yeah.
What about the Moderna vaccine that doesn't require the sub-zero temperatures?
That I do not know. They've embedded the mRNA into something else, or they've stabilized it in some way that it might not be as prone to breaking down.
You know, the fact that we were able to come up with this vaccine so quickly, I heard some scientist talking about it, and he was saying that...
It was like a week after they discovered it.
Yeah, you were saying that, which is incredible. But he was just saying that this type of vaccine is much easier to create than the old type of vaccine, where you're putting like a dead or a weakened strain of the virus in your body or something. And what if, because of this pandemic, we are able to start creating medications at a much faster rate, and maybe we save millions of people's lives?
I think that's why companies like Moderna their stock is, I mean, I rode that wave for a while, and then I got out of Moderna, for those of you who are wondering. But it's exploding. It's like, a FOMO stock at this point. But it's their first vaccine that's coming to market that could be successful. It looks like it's going to be successful. But now that we've unlocked the key of these mRNA vaccines, who knows where we could go with this?
So what percentage growth has Moderna had this year? And is it higher than Tesla?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
I don't think it is.
Right. It does. It's like the company's saving humanity.
Yeah, but
Is
Tesla
it
is
as
a
a-
meme stock, and therefore it always goes up. Tesla always goes up.
makes no
If you had free
sense.
money, would you short Tesla right now?
Does your
No,
stock
Because Tesla always goes up.
does your stock app do this thing where it freezes a lot of the
Yes,
time?
the new Apple stock app is terrible.
I haven't seen that.
I think this video also addressed, you were saying about why this mRNA is so much more effective, or not effective, but it's easier and cheaper to produce, is because we can synthesize mRNA in a lab. Whereas typically there's 3 ways that most vaccines work. And one way is that you take a active virus and then you disassemble it into parts. And then you have to give that to people. You inject that into them, and then your body will recognize all the parts, the proteins and everything, and they'll build up a natural immune response, right? But you have to biologically grow all of that vaccine, all of that virus. You can't just like take it into a lab and build it like you could build a computer part. You have to have it, I don't know if it's in Petri dishes, but...
Or eggs.
Yeah, you have to, yeah, you were showing me a video of that with the chicken eggs.
Yeah.
So you have to actually grow it, and so that takes time, and it's really expensive. Where this one, they're able to synthesize it, much like you would a drug, maybe. You could just make like, penicillin or something. Maybe penicillin's grown too, but any drug, you just like make it with a chemical reaction, and you can make a lot more of it that way. So,
what are vegans' position on taking chicken egg vaccines?
I don't know. Aren't you a vegetarian?
Yeah, but I'm not a crazy soy boy.
I don't know. Who's the crazy soy boy?
Like the people on YouTube videos that are screaming meat is murder and like going ape shit.
I love me a ribeye, so.
okay, you want to guess what we're going to go for a year or for 6 months? How long do you want to look? Because Moderna's only been able to benefit from this for
Let's
half
go
a year.
1 year.
1 year. How much do you think Moderna is up?
I mean, I would hope it'd be up like 3,000% or something. If Tesla is up, what is Tesla up this year? 600%?
I'm not sure.
They're almost identical. Tesla is up 857%, and Moderna's up.
What the hell?
Moderna's up 800%.
So Tesla is doing better than the company saving humans.
Maybe Tesla's
Tesla's also saving humans.
How?
Mars, baby.
That's not Tesla. That's another
space
company.
Automating- That's right.
Automating driving. Once drivers, like I just got in a wreck here in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago. Guy merged right into my lane. He didn't even look back. If we were all in self-driving cars, maybe none of that would have happened.
But there's lots of other self-driving car companies, and no one
Yeah,
cares
but they're all
about those.
Who wants to be seen in a Waymo?
But there's other ones too.
Like,
There's the Mobile Eye or whatever. Like Mobile Eye is
that's the one with the LiDAR sensor up top?
LiDAR. Yes.
Yeah, you're going to look like a goofy.
Yeah, but it actually works.
So does Tesla's.
Not really. It's getting there. It's
getting
And
there.
I believe he
It's
will
getting
do
there.
it. It's just not, it's not usable yet.
So I still posit to you, if you had free money, would you short Tesla?
Here's the thing, man.
Free money?
If you had $10,000 free money, you could either invest it in Tesla and hold it, or you could short
I'm
it.
not putting money in. Oh, I can do either or?
Yeah. What would you do?
I think I might short it again. I cannot invest in Tesla, who's up how much percentage?
850?
800% in 1 year in the middle of a world pandemic. It makes no sense.
Would you invest in Moderna, or would you short that one too?
I would rather invest in Moderna right now than in Tesla. That is how sure I am that in the short term, Tesla will fall big. That is how sure
Yeah,
I
but
am.
that's how sure you were when you shorted it,
I
too.
know.
So,
I know.
I don't
So I could
know
be
how
wrong.
Moderna will benefit from all of this. Like, there's a debate whether or not these companies are actually going to make money on these drugs because they're going to be forced to sell them at such a cheap rate because it's for the good of humanity, yada, yada, yada. A lot of people are saying a company like Pfizer won't benefit nearly as much because Pfizer is so big that this one little thing, even if it saves humanity, which I don't think any of us feel like coronavirus is that big of a deal. We're not like, humanity's not dying because of this. But
I mean,
it's such a small thing. I mean, the survival rate's 99.
I know, but like
Someone says they're going to short your boat.
that's a good bet. That is a good bet. That damn boat breaks every other day. But
When we talk about,
what were you just saying?
just that Pfizer is such a huge company, and this is such a sliver of their business.
Yeah.
Whereas Moderna, this is the first thing they've ever released, and so it's like
Yeah.
the launching ground.
Well, you were saying that the virus isn't that big of a deal because 99.5% of people survive
Yeah.
or whatever. I agree.
If we let this all play out and there's no vaccine, in 5 years, I think if you look at that infograph, coronavirus will still be very, very small compared to other pandemics throughout humanity.
I agree with that.
And yet we're still here.
I'm just curious to know what other world events have had this much of an effect on the economy. And right now, it still seems like the economy's doing pretty good. Like, stocks are at all-time highs for no reason. I don't understand. Companies are still coming out with crazy products. Apple just released their $550 headphones today.
How are they making these things? Because they're coming from China, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's back in business.
Well,
it's not a big
seems
deal.
like the stock rise is driven by future value. In which case, why not just put everything everyone has into the stock based on the value 200 years from now?
No, it's pointless.
It's ridiculous.
That's why you need to take your Tesla money and run. You need to run.
But if there maybe
you don't trust Papa Elon. You already learned.
No, I do trust Papa Elon. I trust Papa Elon. I don't trust all the little 15-year-old kids putting money in Wall Street bets. I don't trust them.
I would like to know how much the Wall Street bet general investors are affecting the stock market, because I've always heard it's so small compared to the institutionalized Wall Street investors that their money is so big that we're talking. It's like going to a casino with 1,000 people that have $100 to spend. Are you going to be sinking whales?
Yeah.
Or the whales, like one roll at one of their tables is still taking out the 1,000 people? You know, I don't know the answer to that, because I still see people that we know that are like, the Robin Hooders, they're messing up the stock market. And I'm like, I don't know that the Robin Hooders are doing a whole lot with their free $10 accounts, you know?
I don't know. Anything else that you guys want to talk about? Today's going to be a short show. I'm tired.
What else is going on in the world? Seems like Trump, I mean,
He lost his Supreme Court thing today.
it just feels like everything's falling apart for him.
9-0.
Even the woman who was supposed to be his
The
hand of
Antichrist.
God or whatever.
So we should be heading into the period now. We're very close to the 20th, 12 days away. Maybe Christmas is like the month before. But what was your boy, Alex Jones? Alex Jones was
My
saying
boy.
like the 74 days of hell after. I can't do his voice without being hoarse tomorrow.
Pretty good.
74 days of hell after the election. It doesn't seem like it's all that bad. So is there that much damage? Maybe there's damage that Trump's doing right now behind the scenes that we're only going to find out once the keys are handed over to Biden. But do you feel like there's going to be some insane thing that's yet? I heard something the other day that he was like trying to leave the White House in Air Force or Marine One in some kind of epic fashion.
Wait, what's
During the
what's
inauguration?
Marine One?
Marine One's the helicopter.
Oh, okay. I figured it'd be a boat or something.
No, but you'd be wrong. Marine One's the helicopter. The
Okay.
It's like a Chinook or something. But
Okay.
anyway, he gets in there and he wants to leave the White House on the 20th.
Yeah.
But people were saying that on the 20th, that helicopter has to be ready at a moment's notice for the new president. So he can't do this thing. But I don't know. I guess I'm just curious, like, do you think anything crazy is going to go down? Seems like the lawsuits and stuff's over with. We're going to have the electors picked this next week. Like, people are going to have to come out and publicly say that I am voting for Biden.
Can't wait.
Once all that happens, I feel like it's done, right?
I want it to be done. I just feel like Trump has done so much damage. I know so many people who believe that this election was rigged. And I have been fairly on top of it. I have been watching extreme right-wing news almost daily, trying to find every little hint of voter fraud there could be. And, you know, I recently saw the video of, like, was it in Georgia, where they're telling people to go home and then pulling briefcases out. And just 3 people are counting briefcase ballots. Like, I don't know what's going on
Did
there.
you see Giuliani's key witness testimony?
That crazy lady?
Oh
like
my
a
God.
drunk Karen?
How did the judge not just laugh her out of the courtroom?
Yeah, she seemed insane, and even Giuliani was like, "Yo,
It's like,
chill.
stop talking, you're ruining it."
Yeah, you're making this
Well,
really
people in the
bad."
comments are talking about, like, the Texas Attorney General they're suing multiple states, and then if a state sues another state, it goes straight to the Supreme Court. But like you just said, if they just had this, I don't know what went to the Supreme Court today that was ruled on 9-0. I don't
You
know
just
the
told me.
details.
What was it? What was the detail? It was
Pennsylvania votes being counted after the.
It was, they wanted to reject the mail-in votes in Pennsylvania that arrived
came
after
in.
the deadline, I believe, which was 2.5 million votes, and it was struck down.
That
9
seems
to
like the
nothing.
only way Trump could win these other states, right? Is something like that. And so if Texas is now suing other states, I guess claiming that like we couldn't count or we did it different and we think it's unconstitutional for you guys to do it different. It seems like that was just struck down today, right? So I don't know how Texas suing other states, yes, it might jump to the Supreme Court, but it might be ruled on 9-0 quicker than this one today. So it just doesn't seem like that's a very feasible.
I just hope, I've never known Trump ever to be graceful about anything, but man, it would be so nice if he was like, you know what? I thought there was fraud, but there wasn't. I lost fair and square.
He is going to tweet until he's in the grave, and then he will probably tweet some more.
I know, but if he could just do that one tweet before he goes into his shit talking about Biden for the next 4, and he will talk trash about Biden doing the same stuff that he did. Like, do you remember when he was talking trash about Obama?
The birth certificate nonsense.
The birth certificate.
My favorite Trump tweet: "The president does not know how to lead. We are a rudderless ship
Okay,
heading for a
there's that.
national crisis."
He complained that Obama played too much golf. He complained that the only reason the stock market was so high was because interest rates were artificially low and they needed to raise them. And then the second he becomes president, he becomes the biggest hypocrite in the world. So I'm sure he's going to do the same thing to Biden. But
The question I asked you guys last night or 2 nights ago was, how long until Melania files for divorce against Trump? Because she's not staying with him, right?
It doesn't seem like she likes him one bit.
What is TDS? Mike has full TDS.
Trump deranged syndrome, is that what it is?
I don't know what that is.
I know what it stands for, but I
He
don't know what
does
it means.
for sure. We're all on tenterhooks here waiting for TDS.
It's something like Trump deranged syndrome.
Trump denial syndrome.
Denial. It's something like that. I don't know quite what it means. It means that
Trump
you totally
distrust.
hate Trump, or that you are blinded by
The
Trump.
chat has gone quiet since I asked what TDS is.
Dun, dun, dun. How much longer are you here for?
I think another 5 or 6 days or so.
Yeah.
Didn't you had some job that you were going to leave earlier?
I had a job, and then they pushed it back by a couple weeks, so I was like, no reason to rush out of here.
Do you think that's because of the virus, or do you think
Oh
it's
yeah,
something?
supply chains in my industry are completely screwed up.
What does that mean? Like, you're shooting for builders that have completed homes, and they're like, our home's not completed
Well,
yet?
the homes are usually done because that's all the labor, like on the ground, people, right? People are still available to put the houses together, but it's the stuff from overseas, like the furniture and the fixtures and whatnot, that aren't arriving on time or are delayed, and they need to get that stuff into the home so we can actually photograph it. Did you hear about, speaking of, the container ship that got stuck in the storm in Hawaii and spilled 2,000 containers overboard?
Were there cars and stuff
There
in
were
there?
cars and furniture and like guitars and all this stuff just went flying into the ocean. And there's pictures of it when it came back to Japan, and it looked like a complete mess. So that's a good example of what happens.
Those things
Trump
aren't waterproof,
derangement
are they?
syndrome. What is Trump? Orange man bad syndrome.
I don't even know what that means.
I think it means that you can't see past anything other than Donald Trump is the enemy, and I must stop him at all costs.
I agree with that.
Like,
you're,
you
you're,
can't- you
you're
can't
incapable of admitting he did anything
No,
well.
I do think he did a few things well.
Name 17 things.
I think 17 things.
Yeah.
I can't name.
Name
17
3 things that you think Donald Trump did well.
I like how he handled North Korea. I like his drawdown of troops, but I don't think it has been as good or as smooth as he claims it has been. I do like his America First policy, but not at the expense of our relations with the rest of the world. I think we should focus on American-made goods, but he's very hypocritical about all that stuff. So I like some of what he proposes, just not the way he acts or holds himself or carries himself or any of that. So no, I'm not an orange man bad kind of person.
When
but
you say you like the way he handled North Korea, I don't even know if I know. Like, what did he do that?
He wrote love letters, and then he went over there, and they became lovers.
It always feels like Donald Trump does stuff that he tries to say, look at what I did, but there's another way to look at it where you're like, the other guy is laughing at him. Like, didn't he just like change trade agreements and just change their name? suddenly it's like, look what I did, or he'd
don't know
do
about
things
that.
that he's like, look what I did to Putin, or look what I did to Iran. But like in other ways, it's like, I don't know. They may have actually got the better end of the deal.
How would you qualify my political positions? You think I'm liberal, I'm extremely liberal on some things, and then conservative on the other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I joke that your political party is hypocrisy. It's like you want everyone to pay high taxes, but you don't like paying taxes, and you want everyone to help everyone else, but like you don't want to be generous and help other people. It's like
Look, your version of generosity is paying taxes, and yes, I think taxes should be higher across the board, but I'm not going to donate money. Like, you just want me to donate money to pay higher taxes. It's a communal thing. If everyone pays higher taxes, we can improve. And this is where we get into the semantics of it. Is like, can the government efficiently even manage the higher taxes that they collect? So,
but you'll complain. You'll pay a huge tax bill, and you're like, "Why am I paying for this? This is ridiculous." And we're like, "But you keep wanting more."
Yeah. Well, no. I think that the 0.01% need to pay higher taxes unequivocally.
Okay, so just
Why
a little
should I
more
pay-
than you.
You can always add a zero in there. It's like
They
the
don't need
0.001, the 0.0001.
And I can't explain my argument without you guys laughing at me.
I mean, you don't need all the excess you have either.
And so, yeah, but I don't think someone making a couple $100,000 is the same as someone making 10 million or more a year. Like, the marginal utility of money is so diminished when you're making that much as to not even be a factor. Like, someone who's making 10 million a year, their life is not going to be significantly worse because they pay half of it to taxes. If someone makes 80 grand a year and they pay 30% to taxes, they have a far greater loss in terms of income. But no, I do believe that there should be higher taxes, but the government needs to efficiently manage the money that they get.
Just looking up David Geffen's yacht that we drove
we
by.
saw.
It cost $590 million. Now, if he had to pay more in taxes, how could he afford that, Mike?
Well, he might have to go down to only having 400 feet of yacht.
You see, how dare you?
Pull up
That would be a rough
How dare
life.
you take food out of his mouth?
pull up a picture of this and
So this is this dude's. I didn't even know who this guy was. But
the Racer Rich says the difference between the guy making 200K and the guy making 10 million is that the guy making 200K created 0 jobs and the guy making 10 million created several jobs.
Well, and what you got to say about that,
I
Mike?
completely disagree.
I mean, you can't
I've
completely
created many
disagree.
jobs. Well, I've created at least 2 jobs. I pay all my employees baseline $35 an hour.
Sure.
I put my money where my mouth is.
Okay,
You know?
but what about
And maybe the guy making 10 million creates way more, but
Yeah.
he's still able to take home that's not the problem. The problem is these insane, like, you just go down and down and down. So there's the CEO of American Airlines who got like a $34 million paycheck while his hundreds of thousands of employees are struggling to make ends meet. Is that okay? You know, like, I just think there is massive inequality. I don't know how to solve it. I'll be the first to tell you that, but the system we have now is completely broken.
sometimes though, the money that people are making, isn't it not always honest how they made it? Like, is he making $34 million in cash? Or does he have some kind of vetting of stock options to where
It's a stock
he gets...
thing. Or they do all these stock buybacks, right? And they cash out the money that they get from that, which is just crazy.
But I'm saying, like, if you were Elon Musk, I don't know if this is a great example, but I'll go there. You're going to say he made
Definitely
so much
overpaid.
money this year, but you just saw his stock increase by 800%. So you kind of have to factor that into his pay, right? He got paid in stocks, or he made this year. I don't know how they always equate it. Sometimes they're telling you what his actual wage was,
yeah, they're
his
talking
salary,
about his net worth.
his salary, but then in many cases they're talking about his worth in that particular year. Those are very different things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for a while there, I don't think Elon was making any money. Now he is, because he hit all these
Bonuses and
milestones that he was
stuff.
supposed to. Photog Mike says in a super chat, $50 if you wax Mike's left eyebrow and right side of his hair. That's worth $50 to you, right?
Are we going down this route again?
We have to get up into like the 10 grand range for that to happen.
Okay. I mean, dude,
I did it for a lot
you
less.
can take my eyebrow for $5 grand. $5 grand. I will rip off my eyebrow right now. My wife's probably watching this going, no. Anything else that we should talk about? Or should we call it quits?
I'm kind of ready to call it quits.
I'm
We have no
pretty tired.
videos. We have no prep. We have nothing going on.
No more super chats. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Sorry for a crappy show. That's the way it goes sometimes. We will see you next time. And stay tuned on the normal F-Stoppers channel for,
The big shoot-off's coming out soon.
yeah,
Probably some other videos in there.
pretty good.
Fights.